So far, we've seen how workflow systems can be used to manage a large number of batch jobs that have internal dependencies. Now, everything that I've described so far works just fine, but it does have a limitation that I want to talk about today. And the solution to that limitation is something known as pilot jobs. So let's go look at a particular case of a simple workflow that I want to submit to a cluster. Here I have a file A. It's going to be processed by job 1 to produce file B. And then once that's created, I'm going to use job 2 to produce file C. All right, so let's use a workflow system to run this. I'm going to take this workflow and give it to my workflow management system. And the workflow management system is going to take that first job and send it off to our batch system in order for it to be run. Now, every time we submit a job for execution, it has to go into a queue and wait until there's an available machine. In all our examples so far, we assumed that there was a machine always available. But today, let's suppose there's a bunch of users who are already sitting on all these machines, and so our job has to sit in the queue here for a while. How long does it have to sit? Well, we don't know. Could be minutes, could be hours, could be a long time. It all depends on our priority and what the scheduling considerations in this system are. But eventually, our job gets a chance to run, and so it comes over here and runs on this node. It runs for a while, and then it's done. And so we send it back to the workflow management system who says, okay, this one is done, and I have my file B. Now I'm ready to submit my next job. So the workflow management system goes over here and says, okay, the next job I need to run is number 2, so let me go put that in the queue. And guess what? We have a bunch of other users over here using the system, and so we have to sit in the queue again for a while. And that could go on for minutes or hours or who knows long, but eventually it's going to get to run. So it goes on one node in the cluster, it runs for a while, and then eventually it's done, and it comes back, and the workflow management system is happy. This could be a real problem if you have jobs that are relatively small, and there's a lot of other people using the cluster. You might end up spending a lot of time waiting for service from the batch system. And that's unfortunate because you're going to pay that waiting time multiple times. That first job has to wait, it runs for a while, and then the second job has to wait again. And between the time it got to run, there might be more people getting in line. There could be more things going on in that queue. You could spend a lot of time waiting just to run a relatively small job. So this setup can have problems for relatively small jobs. And the other limitation here is I keep sending these jobs one by one over to this batch system. It's entirely possible that they all need similar input files, and so they have to keep transferring the same data over and over again into the cluster. So we don't have data reuse like we might like. Now, before we talked about sizing jobs and making sure we could group small jobs into large jobs, but we can't do that here because we can't run this thing until the previous one has done. So what are we going to do to solve it? And the solution is pilot jobs.